We're live. I think I'm going to enlighten myself here. Yeah, maybe a little bit more. Maybe go kick it up a notch. There we go. Now I feel brighter somehow. How's everybody doing? We are live. It's time to talk about the video that I just posted up today, and that is a comparison between two junkyard big blocks, a couple of my favorite things. Obviously, anything that comes from, hello, James, what's up? Anything that comes from the wrecking yard is obviously awesome because it's always a great place to start. Although if you take a look at the 4.8 that I recently did, you might think otherwise, but I just look at that as an opportunity, you know, to hopefully apply the things that I've learned along the way in all the dyno testing, and that works out very well. But these two are also big blocks, which makes it good. One of them, the 8.1, didn't technically come from a wrecking yard, although it could have. That came from Amos. So thanks again for the 8.1. We're going to be doing a bunch of stuff along the lines of the 8.1. The guys from Radar reached out today and asked if I wanted to test some of their stuff, and I told them that I probably did. But maybe down the line, after we do some of the stock stuff, we can try, you know, some of their heads or intake manifolds or whatever they have to offer. I think I am going to take him up. In fact, maybe we'll do that while we're online right now. I think I might take him up on maybe getting a camshaft. Get a mild camshaft, since that's fairly common camshaft to be used in that application for that industry. Maybe springs and maybe a mild camshaft to start out with, so I can also run the other cams on the stock head. We can kind of see what's going on there, and then we'll do the intake upgrades and obviously see what's going on with the dart intake and with the modified version that Amos sent with the big 102 millimeter throttle body. You know, with a stock motor, we might not be able to take advantage of what that thing has to offer. And also, the other thing I'm wondering about is on that particular intake on the 8.1 is, we've got a big throttle body. We've got a good size opening going down into the common plenum now. The runners are essentially still the same. So, you know, ultimately, those are going to kind of determine what the flow rate is into each one of the cylinders. And then the runner length obviously is going to determine where this thing is going to be effective. And judging by what's going on with that motor, it's designed for fairly low RPM. Although, as I say that, I start thinking about the LS and realize that as we put camshaft and cylinder head and stuff in the LS, that even the factory truck manifold, which is designed for fairly low engine speeds, can be made to run efficiently in a fairly wide RPM range. So we can get, you know, like with the truck stuff, we've run canned 4.8s and 5.3s that are making peak power up fairly high, certainly up at 6,500 or something. So that might be interesting if we can get enough relative head flow on the big block, which takes a lot. And then if that intake, again, flows relatively enough for that displacement, then we can, you know, good things can happen. But either way, we're going to find out what happens, and it will be good stuff. And then we could go a little bit wilder with some of the other things that have been offered, some of the cooler intake manifolds and stuff. Although I would like to see, you know, milder stuff tested, which is what my plan is on the 8.1, to show guys okay, here's what happens if you just put a small cam in it and maybe do the intake upgrade. We've already kind of taken a look at headers and stuff. And then when I do that ZZ502 cam where we change the firing order, that might be also something that guys would do. Although I think guys would be less likely to do that on applications that are already in the vehicle and stuff. So I don't know about going and rearranging the firing order in the factory ECU. Somebody let me know. I don't even know if that's even possible on the factory ECU. Maybe it is, but we know that it's easy for us to do, obviously, on the Holly. And then obviously boost is always an option, and nitrous and stuff. But it'd be interesting to see what happens with, you know, good cylinder heads and things. I'm, you know, obviously given the displacement, if we have a 496, forget about whether it's an 8.1, a Gen 7 or Gen 6 or Gen 5 or Gen 4 or Mark 4. If you have a 496 and you put camshaft in it and you put cylinder head in it and you put intake manifold in it, you know, obviously some good things can happen because it's got enough displacement. And if it has enough of those other things, then, you know, kind of big power can happen. But that's my question, and that will be the poll for today. We'll try to get the poll going early. So for big block torque, let's see. And we'll make it even better. For a towing application, or let's see, a big block Chevy truck towing application, would you pick the bigger 8.1 liter over the smaller 7.4 liter? Okay, over a... Okay, so here's the poll for tonight. It's obviously big block related. For a big block Chevy truck towing application, would you pick a modified 8.1 liter 496? And modified could mean whatever you want it to mean. It could be a small camshaft, could be cylinder heads, could be camshaft and heads and intake manifold and turbo, whatever. Would you pick a modified 8.1 over a modified 7.4 liter over the Gen 6 454? So would you pick a modified bigger Gen 7 over the Gen 6? Boom. And we're up. Let's get that poll going. So, and then in the video, what I did was we compared these are two Junkyard motors. One of them I got from Amos, but it's a used motor, just like the Junkyard stuff. So we ran that obviously in stock trim we ran them both with the same headers. One of them ran with both of them ran with a Holley HP. One of them ran with a distributor, but that really doesn't make any difference at this kind of power level and might not make a difference even at much higher power levels. The other one ran with the coil packs because it has a 24X. The 8.1 has a 24X LS style crank trigger on it. Both run with the Holley, both tuned. Both of them kind of have long runner intake manifolds on them, although I think that the 8.1 is much more modern and LS-esque compared to the one on the Gen 6 motor. And actually one of the Gen 6 motors, the L21 version, the steel crank version that they ran in the even bigger applications like top kicks and stuff, actually had the coil packs. So they were already starting to transition to that, even with the Gen 6 motor. Again, I don't know that's really necessary for individual coil packs, but maybe that helped them with the missions or something. I don't know how it would help improve fuel economy, given the, a distributor and single coil actually work fairly well at lower engine speeds. Actually, if anything, that would be a better thing for it to do than try to work at real high RPM. Coil packs could be better because they would have better, more time for them to individually charge, and you wouldn't have a rise time problem. So, but again, that, you have to pick that. So which one on the poll would you pick? The bigger 496 or would you pick a modified 7.4 liter? In the video, the comparison is basically two used motors that we ran. I ran both of them with a factory fuel injection. We did take as I did with the 8.1 too, we ended up putting bigger injectors in it for two reasons. One, I was going to turbocharge it, and then we needed extra fuel for that when we ran it under boost. We weren't running a lot. We were only running 7 pounds, but it made massive torque even at 7 pounds. So we put those 80-pound Deca injectors in it. But when I took the stock injectors out and flowed them, I had a lot of problems with them. There's a lot of stuff stuck in those, and they were wanting to leak and stay open, which is not a good thing, because if you turn the motor off and let it sit and it's leaking, the fuel will leak into the cylinder, and the last thing you want to do is hydro the motor. That's not good. And the same thing with the 7.4. When we ran that, normally what I would do on the 454s is I would get those, and we would take in fact, a lot of times we just take the factory fuel injection off and throw it off on the ground, just like we did with the accessories and all that stuff. We would take that stuff off and throw it away, and then just run a dual plane intake manifold and the carburetor on it. But on this particular one, we actually ran it with the factory fuel injection. And what I did was we took out the factory fuel injectors. We put them over on the ASNU injector flow machine over at West Tech, just made sure that they all work like we did with the 8.1. And they did, and then made sure that they flowed the same. And then we just ran it at like 60 PSI and tuned it with a Holley HP. They produce interesting power curves because they obviously, if you look at them, they're both designed for like heavy duty towing kind of truck applications. They both made peak power at about 4,400 RPM. So they're, and torque in the 3,000 RPM range, you know, the 34, 35, 3,600 RPM range. So they're designed to do exactly that. And they obviously excel at that. They're both run with the same headers, both run with the Mazir electric water pump, open throttle body. In fact, they run with the same throttle body because I just took the throttle body off of the Gen 6 motor and put it on the Gen 7 motor, because the Gen 7 came with a drive-by-wire throttle body, which we did not run. We ran a manual throttle body. And so we compared both of those. And as you might expect, the bigger motor made a lot more, made a lot more power and torque, just made a lot more everywhere. The factory ratings are 290 and I think 350 or 355 on the 8.1 liter. And when we ran them on the dyno, one of them, the 7.4, the 454 made about 370. They make 370, 375. I've run a lot of those. And then the big block made 424 with headers on it. And then when the interesting thing is we then modified the 454, and I didn't keep the EFI on there, and I could have. It wouldn't gain as much because I ended up putting a dual plane before we did the camshaft. And that picked it up another, let's see, 350, 370, it's like 15 horsepower. And then we put the camshaft in, and that brought it up to almost a couple more than the 8.1 made. It made 428. And that's kind of where they are. When we put that 276 camshaft with the dual plane on these motors on the 7.4, on the Gen 6 454s, they're like a 425 horsepower motor when we do that. And that's right about what the 8.1 was. But again, even in modified form, the nice thing about the cam upgrade on the 454 is the torque came up. It made 515 foot-pounds, but that's still not nearly as much as even the stock 496 made it. And again, not surprising. It's got a lot more displacement. So if you're picking it based, especially on the really low speed torque stuff, it's hard to beat a bigger motor. And one of the things I mentioned in the video is that the way to do that, really the only way, if you're not going to choose displacement, because you can't, it would be really hard to make the 454 make 496 torque by improving the efficiency. Like if you put a better head on it, it doesn't really need more airflow there. You could do compression, which would help. You could do maybe adjust the header, and that might help. You could do a better intake manifold. I think that the 8.1 intake manifold, as far as torque production, is better than the 7.4 intake manifold. Judging by the runner length, I would say it's better. So you could do something with that. But really, if you're not going to use, displacement is the best thing, especially way down low, where a lot of those things are, like cam timing is not affecting it very much. Intake manifold will, compression will, but even the adds that those do are not substantial. Displacement is substantial. It all of a sudden, when it's bigger, it draws in more and it makes more torque. The other way to do that, and the thing that I mentioned in the video, is that you add boost to it. You have to be careful adding boost at 1,800 RPM because that's diesel territory, and there's a reason that diesels do what they do. They're a lot stouter. And so I wouldn't go crazy with a level of boost and the level of torque that you'd be adding at that engine speed. But we've seen it work. We know that Mike's truck is doing, running a boosted 8.1 out on the street and doing lots of towing and everything with it. So it does work. You just have to make sure that the tune is spot on. So boost is a good way to do that. And you could do that with a 454. The other option that guys are talking about that a lot is, hey, Richard, what would happen if we took a Gen 6, Gen 5, Mark IV, 454 and made it a 496? And you could do that. And that would just jump everything up and it would be good and make good torque, especially if you combined it with like a set of Airflow Research 265 heads, which I think would work really well. And then the right cam timing. The one thing that the Mark IV or Gen 5 or Gen 6 big block, even as a 496, the one thing it wouldn't have is it wouldn't have the intake manifold that the 8.1 has. It's not a tall deck, and then the other thing is that it's not a it's not a Gen 7 head style. So I have been contacted by somebody who put the early Gen 6, Gen 5, Mark IV stuff on the 8.1, and then I think he made adapters. No, maybe he was using tall deck intake manifolds for them. So he was able to successfully do that on the 8.1 short block. But that doesn't cure us with the intake manifold on a Gen 6 motor. If we made a 496, torque would be there. It would help, obviously, over a 454, but it won't have that Gen 7 manifold, which I think is a big player in especially the low-speed torque production. So that was an interesting comparison. And unfortunately, I didn't have a camshaft because I know that guys are going to say that. Well, why didn't you run a cam in the Gen 7? I didn't have one yet. We're going to need a spring package for that. And when I was down there testing, we just ran the turbo and ran it stock, and I didn't have any other mods that I could do to it at the time because I didn't have a valve spring package. I did have that one camshaft that Andy dropped by, the ZZ 502 camshaft, which we do want to run. But I'd like to get another Raylar one, and we could try, mild cam and kind of see what they do. My guess is, and the other thing I'm going to do, because somebody requested it, is I'm going to demonstrate piston to valve clearance and let you know where we are with these various cams, so we can kind of get an idea on how much camshaft we can fit in there with the stock head and stuff. So that will be interesting. Right now, the first thing that we would run into before we ran into piston to valve clearance would probably be retainer to seal clearance, unless we're running lots of duration and very low lift. Because according to my data on the 8.1, the stock retainer to seal clearance was like right at about 500 lift, which is, if you're running a 480 lift cam, you probably could get away with that. But a 500 lift cam is probably not going to work out very well if the retainer is touching the seal. Things kind of tend to get unhappy. At the very least, it's going to take the seal out, which once that's out of the way, then we have a lot more retainer to seal clearance because there's no more seal there, and that works out really well. So I plan on doing a lot of testing on the 8.1, and I'm excited about that. We have more stuff coming up. I was talking to John Mahovitz today about a project that I wanted to do with him, and he's going to kind of show me what we need to do, but that will be a really good video, so we'll keep that one quiet, at least for right now. We've got the L33 working good. We have the rusted out 4.8, which we're going to get together, and then I have the 4.8 in the video that I'm going to hodgepodge back together and just get it running so that it works. So let's see what you guys have going on. Let's see how our poll is going. So for a big block truck towing application, would you pick the modified 8.1 496 over a modified 7.4 liter 454? 76% are saying yes, and still we got 24% saying no. So you got 24%, 23% probably picking the modified 454, maybe in 496 guys, maybe in heads cam, maybe, there's a lot of stuff available. That's the nice thing about the 454, whether it's a Gen 6 and earlier, is you've got an unlimited amount of like aftermarket support, which you have much less of with the 8.1. Okay, let's see what you guys got going on here. I have static from the mic. It's crackling. Crackle, crackle. What's going on with my mic here? This proves that Richard's from the future. Is there a better displacement per dollar than the 496? A pretty good combination, 468, turbo 400, 9-inch. That's all should work good. Let's see. I'm thinking first gen Silverado short bed 2-wheel drive with an 8.1 swap. That would be good. I like options, so I like the Gen 6 454. It has my vote. Noodles wants the 8.1 with boost. That we've seen that works pretty well. The audio is not good right now. Is that what people are saying? I don't know what's going on with my mic. I've got a good mic. Look, it's nice, good stuff. Yeah, yeah. To better hear the sound of a whisper. A diesel is also a really good option for obviously towing applications. That's what most of the serious trucks are. Dodge Omni with an 8.1 transversely mounted, I'm sure. Yeah, the audio is fine for everybody else. It's just one guy the audio is not good for, and then because of that, you know, I get complaints. Gen 6 454, bore and stroke to 496, aluminum heads, hooker headers, forged internals for boost, whereas with the 8.1, you're stuck with Raylar. The 8.1 heads aren't anywhere near what a 302 is. Thumble, does a big block Chevy cam fit in an 8.1? The Gen 6 stuff does. The factory hydraulic roller Gen 6 stuff fits in an 8.1. They have a different firing order, but if you can change the firing order, then, and that's what we're going to do. The ZZ502 is a Gen 6 cam, and we're going to run that in the 8.1. And then all we have to do is go in and reconfigure the firing order in the Holly, which is easy. Mike, you want the 8.1 for your Pontiac? It does have a really good torque curve. It seems like when you lean back in your chair, the audio gets spotty. Maybe that's it. I know that the chair gets squeaky. Let's see. This chair is actually better. This is a new one. This is all fancy and stuff. It's like a race chair. How would you compare the 496 to the 472 or 500? I should look and see what the comparison is on the Cadillac motor that I ran and that 8.1 liter and see how they compare. I actually haven't overlaid those yet. Maybe I should do that, huh? So let's see. I'm gonna go take a look here. Got that one, and then see if I can overlay. You guys can't see this, I don't think. I don't think you would be able to. Chevy, big block Ford, Cadillac. There we go. Cadillac 500 retest. Ah, interesting. The for those that are interested, the Cadillac 500 makes less power and torque than the 8.1 does. How about a 6.0 with S366, S478 compounded with some good rods for all that low end torque? Richard, are you saying big block Chevy heads are going on to the 8.1 engine with big block Chevy intake? I'm not saying that. I'm saying somebody contacted me and said that he's done that. You have to move around some, re-drill some dowel positions and stuff, I think. And he's put the early Gen 6 and earlier heads on the Gen 7 block, and then he ran because that block is basically a tall deck, and then put tall deck intake manifolds on it, I think. I do like this chair. It's nice. The only thing for me is that the armrests are kind of right at level with the desk, and so it doesn't want to go underneath. Maybe that's because I'm short. If I could if I lower the chair down, but then I would like disappear out of camera view. Boo solves all the problems. Yeah, the Cadillac versus the 8.1 actually is not nearly the competition that I thought it was going to be. How's the 8.1 liter head flow compared to other big blocks? Well, from what I tested, it didn't flow very well, although Radar shows 20 CFM more than what my test did at West Tech. So I don't know if I have I mean, the set that I had was pretty dirty. I tried cleaning the valves and stuff and thought that I did an okay job doing that, but maybe a brand new fresh set would flow more. But the ones that I flow tested were around 260. The ones that they flow tested were 280 stock heads. When you talk louder, it crackles. Okay. I'm building an 8.8 liter PSI block and dart crank, just choosing pistons and rods. Block is from Power Solutions. They make generator and bus power plants. Oh, yeah, I'm familiar with those. The 500 Cadillac was the king. Has anybody mounted a 454 to a 6-speed Allison? That would be my vote. Parts availability in transit could take the heat. Well, the bell housing is the same, right? For the 8.1 and I mean, we just mounted it to our bell housing. Richard, have you ever messed with an 03 Cobra engine? Yes, lots and lots. The guys from Ford Racing supplied an 03 Cobra crate motor way back in the day, and I did like an endless amount of testing with that. I think I used that a bunch in the modular Ford book that I wrote, and a bunch of tests for Muscle Mustangs and Fast Fords. And the guys, when I was doing stuff way back with Jimmy from HP Performance, with Jimmy and Nathan, they did a compound 03 or 04 Cobra, 2 turbos blowing into the factory Eaton supercharger. If your feet touch the ground, you're not too short. Hunter, can you test with a 5.3 or 4.8 preferably, but any motor really using stock manifolds, headers, and using exhaust exit in the extension, exhaust extension in the extension, add a through bolt and a stack of washers in the flow to test the effect on torque? Are you talking about restricting the exhaust flow in the tube? Because that's not going to do anything if it's only going to decrease power. So when are we thinking of porting the other 8.1 heads? I need to get them. I don't have another set yet. Puppet Master, according to Bro Science. Is that a division of the of science? 500 should be better than 496 because 4 better, right? The Cadillac also suffers from a decided lack of head flow. I don't remember now off the top of my head. I think I have the flow numbers when I did all that stuff with Cadco, and I have to go and look and see what the stock head flow was, but it was not very impressive as I remember. Turn mic sensitivity gain down that increase signal strength to your mixer application. We need a 462 valve on the dyno again. Speaking of mod motors, I haven't run one of those in a long time. I kind of would like to do a big bang with one of those. We tested the Cadillac, the stock exhaust manifolds versus headers on when I did all that testing with the CAD code guys. If the heads flow 260 or more, you can get good power. Yeah, the heads will support, even at 260, the heads will support over 500 horsepower. So they're a long way from where we are right now. And if they flow 280 or more, like the guys from Radar were showing, then a good bit over 500. Are you familiar with the newer 8-liter LFI industrial engine? It's essentially a tall deck Gen 6 7.4 block. I haven't seen one of those. Tyler, did I win the Nova? Just thought I'd ask. What is a safe boost PSI for the, is it for the 8.1? Is that what you're asking about? I don't know what 8M1 is. Send the Cadillac heads. The Cadillac heads are on the, no, they're not on the Cadillac right now. They're sitting next to it. The Cadillac heads, something's been done to those. I think we milled those. They did a valve job on them. I think we did springs on them. I don't think we did any porting on them, but honestly, I'm done with the Cadillac. Edward, the testing you did on the 4.6, the boost bash is what made me want a turbo performance over nitrous and supercharging. It was really hard to it was really hard to beat the power gains offered by the turbo compared to the other stuff on that motor. That, I think that should have opened up a lot of people's eyes about the difference between the different forms of forced induction on those things. Godzilla's a schmedium block. Honestly, any single overhead cam mod motor I'll be happy with. They made a lot of those 462 valves, that's for sure. There was no shortage of those things. I'm also excited about doing the, let's see how our poll is doing. I'm also excited about doing the 2.2 liter. There's so much testing I want to do on that because turbo stuff. For a big block truck towing application, would you pick a modified 8.1 liter 496 over a modified 7.4 liter 454? We're still at 74% saying that they would pick the bigger motor over the more versatile and more aftermarket supported 7.4 liter. Richard, I have a full forged Texas Speed LS3 402 dish piston stock compression. What cam should I use for max power on pump fuel? I don't, the pump fuel thing and the camshaft are not going to go together. You just need to make the power. Do you have good cylinder heads on it? What intake do you have on it? What RPM do you want to run this thing in? There's a lot of questions there. The thing that's nice is on a 402, if it's stock compression, that's still almost 11 to 1. Black Wolf, definitely watching this series, wanting to drop a bigger big block in my C10. I want to do something different, and the 8.1 would be that. It is unique, so it is kind of cool. Admiral throwing down the modular Ford knowledge. The 2-valve 465-468 actually didn't end production in the E series, the van, until late 2019. Richard, I'm hoping the 8.1 from Turbo Monza. Richard, I'm hoping the 8.1 heads will pick up the type of flow that Vortex do from the same amount of work. Did you have any pics of the bowl or valves out? I don't think that I do. I don't think I took pictures of the... No, I know that I didn't take pictures of that. Richard, have you done any 5-liter 3-valve Fords? Maybe 5.4, you mean? I've done 4.6 3-valve stuff. Where are diesels more popular in the US? They are. They sell a lot of diesel trucks. And now, for some reason, I mean, it used to be that diesel fuel was less than regular, and now it's really expensive. Austin, thanks for all the information, content you put out. You've helped a lot of people and earned your subs. Thank you very much. Jason, I would pick the 8.1 just for the newer tech and better gaskets and less leaks. I do like, that's one thing I do like about the LS is the infinitely reusable, almost infinitely reusable gaskets. I do like being able to take the oil pan off, the front cover and the rear cover and valley cover and all that stuff and putting them back on. That's kind of nice. Jay, is a police interceptor, Richard, is the police interceptor 4.6 out of an 04 Crown Vic any better than the regular one? I don't think so, but I think that they probably would have done oil coolers on those. I know on the 5 liters that they did, you know, some hoses and things, but nothing that made the thing any more powerful. I wonder if they took the speed limiters off of those Crown Vics. Richard, you'll have to run a new 4.3 liter LT. I agree. I do want to run one of those. I'm going to try to do that with Brian back at Brian Tooley Racing. Robert, thank you very much. Thanks for all the testing you're doing on the 496. Happy to help. Richard, mildly ported PI heads, trick flow street burner, 278 cams, 10-to-1, Cobra Kellogg crank. Peak power is going to be limited by that intake manifold, I think. I would say it's going to be less than 7,000. Mikey, Wiki says the fuel injection system for the Vortec 8100 is nearly identical to that used on the Gen 3 small block engines, right down to the fuel and spark tables and the ECU. I've been told that. I mean, it does have a 24X. It has a cam and crank sensor. It has the coil packs. The injectors, though, I think somebody told me that they were 35-pound injectors. Why is GM so afraid of single and double overhead cams? I bet Eric would get the heads to flow well. I don't know that he's interested in porting iron heads, which is why I haven't sent him the 3800 heads. I have an 8.1 in my 30-foot motorhome. My father-in-law has one in his too. Curtis, I have a LQ4 6-liter 317 heads. I'm running a Holley Terminator max plan for a high of 12 to 14 pounds. eBay GT45. 2 questions. Would you gap the rings? Yes, I would gap the rings, and you probably will not be able to make 14 pounds with the GT45 on that engine. If you have a cammed 6-liter, it's not going to support that. That's a 7 or 750 horsepower turbo, and your 14 pounds on a cam 6-liter would be more than that. Richard, I was just watching your fuel injection video, but came over. Was there a formula for injector supported? Yeah, I think I did give you the other factors that you need to multiply it by to do boosted applications, and then also E85. it basically just reduces the amount of fuel that each one of those things will support when you go to boost and then when you go to E85, because it just requires a lot more fuel. Have you built any high revving big blocks? Only between 7,000 and 7,500, I think, where I've run big blocks. That's as high as I've run them. Yeah, the Crown Vic's got cop brakes and cop tires and cop suspension. I've seen 8.1 injectors that were 34s or 42s. The 42s were in the 2,500 Silverados. I have a built 8.1 with 106 millimeter large frame turbo. That's a lot. I don't have a big bang plan for the 8100. Richard, my 402 LS 3400 stall, stock intake, stock heads. I had one LS7 lifter fail. The cam was a 234 250, which is a lot of cam. I'm hoping that you have some sort of valve reliefs in the pistons for that camshaft. It was built for boost originally. If I keep it NA, what cam? You can still use that camshaft in your NA motor. It will work fine. Oh, a cop computer too, yeah. I think it's a good idea to turbo a stock 8.1 in a motorhome. I think low boost in a motorhome with a good intercooler, I think that would be great. Every cam is a turbo cam, that's true. Any plans on power sports build? Would love to see build a 2-stroke. No, I don't actually. I kind of wanted to do some jet ski stuff way back in the day, but I haven't. We never did. I wanted to do more boosted stuff, but do you think that the Dodge 2.2 bottom end will hold together at 400 horsepower on the dyno? I think it will. I don't think that will be a problem. I think with ring gap, I think the stock stuff will be fine. I think guys are breaking stuff because of tune issues, I would guess. I also have a 2.5, and I have forged Wiseco pistons for it, although I think it has factory rods in it. So with that 2.5, I may get a set of rods for it and then have rods and pistons, and then that one would certainly hold up. $8,000 to $8,500, no problem for big buck Chevy C Grand Prix hydroplane, or just see. You could look at pro stock stuff too, but it's not that it's not a problem. It's the problem is money to make them do that though. Brian, thank you very much. Guy here in Plumas Lake just bought a throttle body injection setup for a 3.3 small block. I told him to go the other route. Yeah, I think I would recommend the other way. Brian, checking in late. I'd love to replace the 89 dually crew cab throttle body turbo 454 turbo 400 with an Allison and an 8.1. Is it mostly like an LS swap? I would imagine it is. I don't know a lot about the taking out the factory fuel injection from one and putting in another one. I don't know what it's all entailed in the wiring and stuff like that. The motor obviously is fine. Dual throttle body tunnel ram versus a single Victor on small block Chevy and maybe an LS. Every time I've ever tested any kind of tunnel ram versus a single 4-barrel, the tunnel ram does better. The fuel pump for that upgrade will definitely be necessary because the throttle body fuel pump is not very high flow, and it's also not high pressure enough for the port injection. Daniel, I didn't see whose feelings. I didn't know whose feelings you didn't want to hurt. Yeah, Brian, happy to help. ITBs over tunnel ram over single plane. What about a single carb tunnel ram? I get that question a lot, and honestly, I don't remember testing a single 4-barrel tunnel ram. I would be a little worried about maybe distribution unless it came to a really big peak and mounted it up top. But I haven't actually tested that. So you have 20 miles on your LS swap, and you're already thinking about putting something more interesting in it. Was thinking about an 03 Cobra. 03 Cobras are not cheap dates anymore. The 03 Cobra motors are getting hard to come by. Richard, have you noticed anything slowing down at West Tech with fuel price increase? Not really. What they do is the engine dyno testing and stuff. Is there's lots of engine builders building stuff. What oil did you use for the 8.1 test, and what kind of oil pump did you use? Also, does the 8.1 have a windage tray? I don't know if it has a windage tray because I don't think I took the pan off. I think it does. I know that it has a valley tray. The oil that I use is whatever was cheap at the auto parts store. I think it was either 1040 maybe I put in there. Potter will make rods for your 2.2 liter. I know I've used Potter before. I had them make rods for me for a couple of things. I had them do it for a special Honda that I did, kind of a cheater motor that I did for when we were racing. And then I also had them make some for either one or two of the Bonneville projects that we did with, I know that they did the rods for the Suzuki Kazashi that we did. And then I think maybe they did maybe a Volkswagen set or something. What I do have that I want to run, or I have forged, in fact, that's another set that I have. Potter did a set of connecting rods for me for the Chevy Sprint Turbo. So I have forged rods and forged pistons for the Chevy Sprint, for another Chevy Sprint Turbo motor. I also have a complete Chevy Sprint Turbo motor ready to run. I would imagine tie rods would be a lot of money. I like the poll question, but not sure if I can say anything. I might get slapped the next time we go to the Oscars. When fuel costs go up, people rethink running blown 454 stroker motors. Do you think you can get 1,200 horsepower out of an L83 boosted? I wouldn't see why not. It has a lot of things going for it. The trick will be getting enough fuel to it, which will have to combine port injection and direct injection to make that happen. But I think that the block is certainly strong enough, and I think that the internals are. I don't know about the piston design, and we can certainly put enough camshaft in it to make that work. And ported versions of that head or other heads can flow a ton. I mean, I don't see any reason that Brian's already made mid 500s with that L83 NA. So, you know, we're already there fairly easy, and having to do a little bit of boost to make the rest of it's not a problem. Todd, Richard, how was your day? My day could have been better. It's hard to get things back on track. Watch the video today while I'm at the doctor's appointment taking, for your oncologist. Are you not doing well? Let me know what's going on, man. Is it worth putting 4.8 pistons in a 5.3? I would say yes on the Gen 4 stuff because it's easier to take those pistons on and off. On the Gen 3 stuff, that could be hard pressing those things off. Here's my email. killerb16@aol.com. So if you want to get in touch with me, there's my email. If you see nice small book Chevy stuff in Chico listed, it's probably me. At the junkyard, you can pull a decent Navigator or Aviator motor. I see quite a few of those for $500 to $700 at my local auto parts yard, and 5.3s go for $700 to $1,200. That seems like a lot for an LS. At our yard, the V8s are the same price, except for the big block was more. The big block Chevy was more. And I have seen a few 5.4 4 valves, which would be a good one to have too. Do you have access to a set of RSX heads and valley pan and intake? I don't. If you're looking for Honda stuff, the only Honda K series that I have is a K24. Turning right, I have a 496 big block Chevy. It's all forged, full roller motor. It's 2-bolt main. Would be okay spraying with the 150 shot or boosting it. It makes 750 NA. That's a good 496. Is it really high compression? That seems like a lot of power. Well, for a 496, maybe that's. Richard, price on a junkyard 8.1 in Allison, ECU and wiring 2,000, 3,000. I don't know. I never ask about taking the engine, and because they would sell all that stuff separately at the thing that I go to. Maybe people have takeouts for those things. I think at that kind of price level, you're better off just buying a vehicle that has that in there and taking all that stuff. Charles, I paid $1,000 for my L33, but I need to have a lot of fun for me. What size valves are in the 8.1? I did measure the valves. I have that information. At least I thought I did. I thought I was going to take those out. I don't even see a valve measurement. Wow. That's a big fail there. Spring OD, spring ID. Wow, I'm going to have to ask Amos on that. The sprint motor could be pretty cool in a Manx clone, yeah. Richard, what turbo would you recommend for a stock LQ9? It depends on what kind of power you want to make. A GT45 would be good if you want to make 600, and then something bigger if you want to make more than that. So an engine dyno, it's 10.25 to 1. 10.25 to 1, 496 made 720. That seems like a lot. I have, Rick, I have a well, I'm sure you're thinking 2000 Yukon Denali with a 5.7 Vortec in it. What can I do to get more power? Headers, cam, springs, but you'll have to tune it, obviously. When you're running the dual pumps inline and an FMU in your Mustang, was your fuel pressure over 100 PSI to get what you wanted? And was it durable? Well, it was durable enough to, I did that with the FMU early on when I had 24-pound injectors. And it was necessary. And I did that when we ran the Silver State. So it ran at over 100 PSI for more than a half hour straight. So it did that. And then later on, we would put 36-pound injectors with a 36-pound meter. And then I didn't have to have an FMU in there anymore. Justin, the valves on 8.1 are 219, 175. Okay. I can do the entire valve train in my 4.6 in a few hours. You can change valve springs on a 4-valve 4.6 in a few hours with the head still on the motor. That seems like it would be really hard to do. I remember talking to Mahovitz about doing that. He said, "Are you going to put springs?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh yeah, that's not going to be fun." Richard, I'm looking for 600 wheel horsepower on a 331 small block Ford, 400 NA at the crank. What turbo do you recommend for spool and performance? Think road racing. I still would go the GT45 for that power level. For an FE, I'm trying to get done. It'll all be a 7875, 1.2 AR T4. That will work good. Oh, a 2-valve. Yeah, 2-valve is actually easy to work on. The 4-valve is hard to get in with the springs. It's no picnic. We got 3 minutes left. How's our poll doing? Still at 75% yes and 25% no. People choosing the 8.1, where bigger is better. Admiral, I have a teardown of a 2-valve on my channel. First time tearing deeper than the intake manifold on one. It is interesting the first time that you take that, because I can remember back when we did this, taking the front cover off and seeing the cams and stuff, and then on the 2-valve, and then seeing all that on the 4-valve, and you're like, wow, that's an awful lot going on. But I found that just taking pictures of everything made it so that it's a lot easier to put stuff back together. What's your favorite nature hike? Anyone with my wife. We have an area that we take our dogs to up in the hills, and we let the dogs just go run around and be dogs, and they just couldn't be happier. Except my wife always wants to go up and try to pet the cows, and the cows are like not having any of it. How much power can we pick up lightening up the rotating mass, such as a heavy flywheel and stuff? You can pick up some. I did a test where, and I'm going to redo this test because I want to do the video on it. We did it for a magazine story way back. We basically just compared the difference between, we have a steel flywheel and a steel drive plate, and then an aluminum flywheel and an aluminum, because it's a neutral balance, and then an aluminum drive plate. And so we can compare both of those, and it's a pretty big difference in weight, and almost no difference in diameter, which the diameter would change moment of inertia actually even more than the weight does. And so you can actually measure that on the dyno. You can see a difference in power from that kind of weight change. And I actually need to measure it. I think we did for the story, and I can't remember now what the difference was. But it would be interesting to do that for a video, because I think that would be kind of cool. Hello, Gen 6 454 with Mark IV closed chamber 290 heads and a comp cam 274. This is a good truck motor. Yeah, that camshaft should be good, and those heads should work well as long as you have piston to valve clearance for that. That should all work good. And then I would assume that you have a dual plane intake manifold, which is what you'd kind of want for towing. If you bolted a Honda Insight motor to the Westech dyno, you'd have to hit it with nitrous to get the dyno to register any input. No, we ran NA B16 motors on there. So if anything, the Honda Insight motor might make a little more torque down low than the little B16 did. The difficulty with the B16 is it had such a broad like RPM range. So we would want to run it from like 3,000 to 8,000 or 9,000. And it didn't really want to do that. The dyno didn't want to allow it to do it. It was okay when the thing was turbocharged and it was actually making power. Then the dyno could have a much more a broad dynamic range. So with that being a 6,000 RPM motor or 6,500 RPM motor, I'm thinking it probably would be okay. I've been using a carbon fiber drive shaft in my 97 Z28. We ran one of those in my Mustang for a long time too. Sending an email. Okay, cool. Yeah, Amos is always there to answer questions. Somebody's asking, what's the fastest I think that I've run in the quarter mile? I don't think I've been actually at the track. I don't think I've been quicker than 11s maybe. Most of my racing was road racing and at Bonneville. What gets better mileage of an 8.1 or 454? I don't know. I don't know that either one of them are great. Will a 6.2 LS with 799 heads and a fast intake make more power than LS3 setup? No, it won't. The 799 heads don't flow anywhere near what an LS3 head does. The 799 head flows like 250, and an LS3 head flows 315. So it can support 100 more horsepower than the 799 head. Very interested in installing my new clutch and aluminum flywheel to see how the power might be improved. One of the things that we did back when I was running World Challenge is we put a tilt and triple disc clutch on it. And basically the triple disc clutch bolted to I mean, it was a specialty piece, but what was essentially a flex plate, because it had almost no weight at all. It was just there basically to use with the starter that we had. But the triple disc clutch, so all the weight was like centered in the middle. And so it made the thing like, it made the motor feel really zippy. Richard, do you have a red hat from Bonneville? Yes, I've gone set records at over 200 several times. In my Honda, we went 226 and I don't know, 0.674, something like that in the Civic. I think I have a comparison between 799 heads and LS3 heads up on the thing, because I ran them both on a 6-liter, but it would do the same thing. It'd actually be even better for the Recport heads on the bigger bore. I have a TBI 454 from an 88 Suburban. What would you suggest as far as modifications for long distance highway towing? The throttle body injected deal is going to be a problem. You can mill the heads, you can do a small camshaft, you can do headers, you can do things like that, and you're obviously going to have to do tuning as well. Fuel economy with a stock 8.1 up or down with the turbos. I don't know. You'd have to actually kind of test that, and you'd have to be real to answer that question. You have to be very regimented on your test procedure. I put a 30-pound steel flywheel in my Fairlane. It picked up fuel mileage when cruising on the freeway. Was the other one like a 60-pound flywheel? Richard, any interest in doing another guy's big bang on a Chrysler 2002 H047 single overhead cam V8? They have forged cranks and rods, 10-to-1 pistons. Is there any sort of aftermarket support for that motor? Richard, have you done a Gen 3 Hemi? You mean the book that I wrote on Gen 3 Hemis? And all the Gen 3 Hemi testing that I have up on the all the videos I have up on the channel? Yoshi, I'd be the wrong guy to ask about those tuners for the factory stuff. I don't ever use those. I only use aftermarket ECUs on the dyno. Okay, so we're going to close out our poll here. We're still staying at, we got 291 votes, which is good. We have 75% saying yes and 25% saying no, that they would pick the bigger 496 over a modified 7.4 liter. So we'll end that poll there. I'm always excited about doing a new motor, but I have lots of them that I still haven't done yet. That's why I don't want to go back to the Cadillac, and I want to get done with the 3800 too, so I need to get rid of those and get those done, and then go on to the new things. Because just after doing 10 or 12 videos or whatever on the 3800 and that many on the Cadillac stuff, it's time to do a new engine family. It's time to do the finish the 292, finish the Buick, do the Slant 6, I'm really excited about the 2.2 liter Dodge turbo motor, because I got a lot of stuff that I want to test on that. And so I need to get those done. And I just can't keep doing endless testing on the same thing. We got to bring new fresh stuff in all the time. How about a test on the new 7.4 liter, 7.3 liter Godzilla motor? I don't have any of those, so that's not going to happen. Send me the Cadillac heads. That's not going to happen. The Cadillac heads are just going to go back on the Cadillac, and that motor is going to go away. The Buick that I'm doing is a 455, and a 300 Ford is another one that I want to do. So guys, I got to get going. It's been 2 minutes. It's actually been way more than 2 minutes, as always. Thank you guys all for showing up. Hopefully you guys have all taken a look at the video that I have up on the big block stuff, the 8.1 and the 7.4 liter junkyard big blocks. There's nothing better than going to find. I remember how excited I get whenever I walk by. Like, they used to have just kind of a truck section. Now it's all kind of a mess the way they have it arranged. But they used to have like all the full-size trucks in one area. So you could go in and you'd see the Ford and Chevy and Dodge big trucks. And, sometimes they had really big ones there. And you can go and walk through those. And I was just always like, I want that big block. I want that big block. I want that big block. But, after you have 4 or 5 like Gen 6 454s, really, what are you going to do with them? I run them on the dyno and stuff. And then once in a while I get people that want one, that need one for something, and then I can sell it to them cheap or whatever. That's always good. But there is a lot of want when I go to the wrecking yard, I'll tell you that. Thank you guys all for showing up, and I will see you guys all tomorrow. Do, 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 do. Do, do.